Episode 36.
What's up, shitbags? Oh, welcome back. I mean, we say the same things every time, but it's fantastic. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here. We couldn't be here without you guys. We'll jump right into everything. Thanking Taylor's Tins, Crew First Culture, Jobtown, Toxic Suppression. Could not be here without you guys, but you guys all know that. You guys have been extremely supportive. We can't thank you guys enough. Check out for some merch still. You know, we got that available. Get some sweatshirts, some cups. Those mugs are great, but otherwise, just keep listening. You guys are awesome. So
Learn some things.
yeah,
Listen to me, and Bryce talk, and all the fun things of podcasting.
it's a great time. But we won't take up any more time with Dave's time. Let's bring him in. That's what everybody's here to listen to. He's a great guy. We got the chance to meet him when we were down in Atlanta. We've talked about that course a lot, and we're really excited to talk some more about it. So let's bring in Dave. Let him introduce himself. Dave, how's it going?
Hey, welcome on.
Hey, boys. Good to see you. Thanks for having me here today.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Thanks for coming on. Why don't you go ahead and give a little introduction, talk about yourself.
Yeah, well, I met Bryce and Brennan at the Metro Atlanta Firefighter Conference held just outside of Atlanta. And in the course of it, like, it's an excellent course, it's an excellent conference. If you ever have a chance to participate in these regional conferences, like, these guys flew into it. We've had other people who've come in from Alaska, California, Canada. So I do credit with attending that conference has really exploded my understanding of the fire service and indeed more friendships with guys like you. So it was good. My name's Dave Gillespie. As you can see, I'm a division chief up in Canada, and that means I have snow outside. I'm going snowmobiling this weekend. I'll probably be ice fishing next week. Just waiting for the ice to thicken up a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I've been on the job for in my 29th year. I'm having a really good time. I wake up every morning excited to come to work, and throwing a lot of new stuff at our 100 career firefighters, and I'm lucky they all put up with my bullshit. So it's pretty good. And because of these conferences, and after working on a book with Rick George and Bob Carpenter, Rick out of Palm Beach County and Bob Carpenter out of Miami-Dade, we formed a business called Tactical Resiliency Training. So now we work with a cadre of instructors. There's like 15 guys around North America that we're really lucky, and you got to meet them in Atlanta. So that's a bit about me, family, 2 young men for sons, and super fellas. They're both looking at getting into emergency services, and still trying to convince the one to not pursue policing, but it's okay. He's got a dream that counts.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, we'll get right into the questions we got for you. So the first one, you mentioned it. Obviously, you're our first one from outside of America to be on here, so it's kind of cool. But what are some differences that you've noticed about USA and Canadian firefighting?
Oh, well, I think everybody in our world looks to the States as the trendsetter, and like the latest in technology, the latest in practices. But we're finding that we have a lot in Canada that we should be proud of, and realize that we're doing as good, if not in some areas better. So when I look at differences, like, you can obviously cold weather firefighting, you folks up in the northern states are similar to our northern provinces. The difference is, I find that, like, I could probably rhyme off, you have bigger trucks. Sometimes we have as big trucks. You guys have more tillers. We tend not to run tillers. We run straight sticks and platforms, articulating platforms. A lot of water tenders. Out of our 35 million people in our country, we have, I believe it's 130,000 firefighters, and about 10% of those are career, and 90% are volley or part-time. So from technology, we pretty much follow your lead. Techniques, we're right up on. And yeah, I would say, like, high rises, we share a lot of information on. We recently had a bunch of your top guys, Clark Lamping and Joe Davis, and a couple of guys from our department, or sorry, they were up here in Canada where I attended the lectures, and I was looking at it thinking, oh, it must be new. And I found out it was some of the same stuff we've been doing. So that's encouraging. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
And we're sending guys like Mike Langford and Brent Brooks, and they're down in the States speaking as well. So I think there might be two countries, but we're not that much different. Some of our features, like the PFAS argument, we have a really strong health and safety network. So some of our people got on right on top of, and within a short order, within 18 months, we're now getting new bunker gear without PFAS. So,
wow, yeah, that's actually very cool.
Yeah, so I would say we're more related than we are different.
Yeah,
and if anything, I've come across where Americans are very proud and proud to share their passion of the fire service. And if you are that passionate up here in Canada, people sometimes look at you and go, wow, you're really into your job. Is that okay? Like,
interesting.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I've got a closet full of blue t-shirts with labels from around the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're perhaps a little more reserved on that. We say thank you and and a bunch, but we're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. Awesome. That all bleeds down by us, especially the Wisconsin is.
Yeah.
You can barely tell. Anytime I've been around the world, that's the question: are you from Wisconsin or Canada? Like that's Michigan probably gets a little bit of the same, but yeah, the Erno, the Alps, all that comes right down by us.
Yeah, it's been good. I'll tell you one of the real wins that I've been so blessed with. We've introduced a number of changes in my firehouse in the last year. So we've got 100 firefighters. We run the equivalent 4 platoons or 4 battalions. We rotate not on every 3 day. We rotate every 4 days.
Oh, nice.
We work a shorter work week, but we have to work longer to retire out. So where I'm going with that is that we've had a bunch of changes, and somebody says, I'm looking for an officer development program, Dave. What do we think? And I said, hold on. I know Larry Doling. He's in Palm Beach. I know a guy who's over in Vegas. Let me call these people. I know a guy in Calgary. So all of a sudden, our officer development program comes together in weeks. I would even say days, actually. And same thing with, we got a new thermal imaging camera, and I pull up the YouTube, the supply. Scott sends us the YouTube link, and I pull it up, and I'm airing it for my guys, and I turn around and make sure I'm all set on the screen. And there's Curtis Rice, and I'm like, holy crow! All right, battalion chief from Florida. Let me tell you about Curtis, and so yeah, I feel I'm pretty lucky that we as a fire service don't worry about boundaries or borders.
Yeah,
I think that's very important for networking outside your department and getting these different people to come in, share ideas, and create one of your own for your department. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like I can tell you, I know one of the guys that I don't know anybody directly with the California fire incident at Palisades right now, but I know of somebody who's familiar with the aircraft firefighting crew, and he just said, like, not even a thought. As soon as it's approved through the various bureaucratic channels, which happened, I guess, very quickly. Like it was within a day that different provinces were sending some of our super scoopers down to you guys, and for each plane that went down, there was five pilots. Let me get this right: 5 pilots and 5 mechanics with each plane. And so I understand there was a group of 40 that was done part of the initial deployment. And yeah, I mean, I'm really proud for those people.
Awesome.
Proud that they're sharing our resources, because I know if we were in a bind like California is, or if it's BC or Alberta, you guys have been there to help us too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sure.
I wanted to circle back before we move on the differences. Just curious, because you mentioned with the schedule, do like all of the Canada departments run that schedule, or is it kind of like us where, I mean, Brennan and I at this point, we're 30 minutes away and we run totally different schedules. Like there's like 6 or 7 around that we basically all alternate from.
Yeah. So credit to our American brothers and sisters when they scored the 24-hour routine shift schedule. When that migrated up here and then blended in against our 42-hour work week, it turned into, what's the best way to show you? This is the best way to show you. So looking at the screen, anything in yellow is my former shift. So you'll see a Monday and a Thursday, skip a week, then work a Friday, then a Sunday, followed by a Wednesday, Saturday, then a Tuesday, and then back on.
Okay. So it's very similar to what we would call the California, except you get some extra days.
Yes. Yeah, that
looks very nice. That's
yeah.
And is that what most apartments run up there?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So no matter where you go, that's about the schedule you're going.
Yeah, there's still a couple of departments still on the 4 days on, 4 days off, 4 nights on, 4 days off. But
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, we've been adopting. This is known as the Toronto schedule for us.
Huh.
And
that looks nice.
Yeah, it's fairly common. Anyways, yeah, so it's
cool.
Meant for better rest, better recovery, better quality of life.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That was nice. Cool. So that wraps up our differences on there. Now we can start talking about you personally and some of the expertise that we know that you like to share. So first one is what about some of your key experiences changed how you approach firefighting and learning?
Oh, well, I would say prior to the job, I was in a career working with Outward Bound where we took people on long extended trips and like trips in the outdoors. And for a period there, I was working with young offenders, and they made me realize to be really humble, and also that your day doesn't stop because it's 5 p.m. Right. So one of the key experiences was recognizing that 18 hours or a 24-hour work cycle, you just do it till the job gets done. When I started here, I had a training officer named Ron Sparks, and he was in my position back in the day. And he laid out for us to constantly be learning. And I've realized that this was that one career where you could not say, hey, I know everything about this one subject. I mean, I'm sure there's some of people who do say that, but I'm going to call again bullshit. So he really helped me set a tone that I'm on a learning curve, and that learning curve looks like this. And I switch over to a different subject and it might be like this. Switch over to a different subject and it might be like. So he was instrumental in my life. I also, I hung out with a retired Navy SEAL. After my father died, there was a guy who'd moved up from Coronado to my small neck of the woods outside of Toronto. His name was Jack Schropp. And, you know, I kind of befriended him because honestly, I was pretty hurting after losing my father, who was my best friend at the time. And Jack was about 30 years older than me at the time. And if I was 30, he was 60. And Jack was, I came to him one time pretty worked up about a fire, and we lost the kid, and I was beating myself up about it. And he taught me, you know, at a certain point, if this is the continuum of time, the incident happened here, or even if it happened here at the start, I wasn't responsible for what happened at the fire leading up to it. I did my best to stabilize it in here on that timeline continuum. And what happens after here is what I do to take care of myself. So he helped me understand that, you know, a lot of the calls that we go to are just a moment in time. We didn't cause it. We did everything in our ability to keep it from getting worse, hopefully stabilizing. And then at a certain point, you get on the rig, you commiserate, you hash it out with the men and women on your truck, get back to the hall, you maybe play some basketball, or you go for a shower, workout, you pee the cortisol out, or you work it out. And at a certain point, I realized I should stop trying to carry the world on my shoulders and just recognize that I'm human.
Yeah. I like that.
yeah. So those are a couple of key experiences, and one of the best experiences, if I have time here, do I have time?
Go for it.
Absolutely.
So I've learned early, because you and I have a mutual friend in Rick. I met Rick in a bizarre way. I went to FDIC one time. I sat in the back of the room with this guy, and he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I'm thinking I'm about to quit the fire service. I've had it, and I think the guys that I'm with right now are not the right team for me." Well, that guy recognized my patch, didn't know me from anyone, called me up 9 months later, and he said, "You and I met in the back of FDIC. I'm going to be in Toronto. I'm going to meet with some really cool people. How would you like to come?" And I was like, "Are you kidding? Like, really?" And he goes, "Well, you just got to promise you're going to meet some people who are really into the fire service, and they're a group called the Fools."
Mm.
And at the time, I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds corny. I've never heard the term, but let's try it." And the guy tells me, "Do you remember who I am?" And I went, "Honestly, buddy, I just remember you were the tall, skinny, blonde guy." And he goes, "Right. My name's Bobby Halton." And I went, "Oh, holy, I've read your articles." So I get on a plane out of Toronto. I meet them in Florida. And in the back of the truck is Bobby and this guy, Rick. And as we're driving away, we're being driven by a guy named Bruce Clark, and Curtis Rice is in the van. And they all start talking about their love of the fire service. And I just went, "Oh my God, these are the brothers I've been looking for."
Mm-hmm.
And Rick and I really hit it off, so much to the point I called him up a couple of years later. Like, we had stayed in contact, every couple of months. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, do you remember that story you had about you were wearing a face mask and you started hyperventilating?" And he goes, yeah, I remember that." And I go, "Well, I was just in the Walmart, and this little kid came running around the corner, and he looked exactly like the kid that drowned. And I broke into a sweat, and I started hyperventilating, and my clothes, I was soaked." And Rick was the first guy to say, "Yeah, Dave, that's normal. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about." So that really moved my level of friendship and appreciation for people into the fire service to this crucial understanding that there are people out there that carry lockerfuls of bad memories, and they affect us differently. But in some ways, we share a lot of similarities more than differences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Rick and I got bouncing back and forth about strategies that he was using, that I was using, what professionals we were talking to. And that's when he and I came across this Lieutenant Colonel, former Ranger named Dave Grossman. Dave Grossman had written a book called On Combat. Looking over on my bookshelf, it's not there. Oh, I loaned it to a guy. And Rick said, "Dave, this guy is talking all about the human stress response that you and I had when we pulled up that emotional memory, whether it was putting on the face mask or seeing the kid from the drowning." So I've learned a lot about, okay, I'm not as weird as I thought I was. And I now get it, that when in this job, we are given the gift of post-traumatic stress. Mm-hmm. It's up to us to recognize it and say, all right, I'm going to do something with this, and work with it in a way by asking for help, talking to the right people, taking care of ourselves, learning whether it's mindfulness, or if you're into yoga or into tactical breath work, or you're into just chilling by a campfire. My buddy Patrick Armitage, that's what he finds as his mindfulness moment, is sitting in front of a campfire down in South Walton. Mm-hmm. So I guess where I'm going with this, when you ask me about key experiences in my career, a lot of them have been from people in my circle, in my firehouse. And then because I've gone to these other experiences, these other conferences, met other people, traveled, built friendships, get to go to conferences like MAFC and firemanship conferences and other, my world has really, my family has grown exponentially.
For sure.
So those key experiences have helped me make it a very enriched career, and I'm grateful, man. Like here, let me reach something for you, and I'll sum this up. You know Taylor Tibbs?
Hey, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? I befriended Mike Galliano, or Gagliano, as some of you like to call him, and I was complimenting him on his work, and he said, I still have a couple of those left. So with his poetry and the artwork by Paul Coombs, we were able to get signed copies, and these just came in at Christmas.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's cool.
So I put those up in our firehouse here, just trying to build the same atmosphere that I've gained from meeting people like you.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, Taylor does some great work. Can't thank him enough. He is such a character. It was fun to have him on, but oh my God, we had him on as one of our guests, and he's exactly what you would expect.
Oh, really?
He had fish as his background the whole time. It was great. But speaking of sitting around campfires, doing yoga, doing tactical breathing and everything, our next question is talking all about TRT, which you can do all of those things at in the 24-hour course. So why don't you talk a little bit about TRT? You talked about creating it, but what kind of went through getting the first course, and what can people expect from it? Because I know we had Jeremy back on. I mean, Jeremy was a huge part of us creating this podcast, and we were able to have him on as a guest shortly after we took the course, and he talked a little bit about it, but you've got an outlook on it as well, and we can't tell people to take it enough, but it's a great course.
Yeah, well, I can't give enough compliments to Jeremy Sanders. He came to us as a guy that he said, I feel like I'm of the same cloth as you guys. I feel like I'm coming from where similar values, core values. Hang on. Yeah. Just got to get the ops radio off.
Did I hear lift assist? Is that it's
yeah,
everywhere?
It's
even in Canada. It's still
frequent flyers everywhere. Yeah. So so it's really evolved nicely, and it's because of people, Nate, Jeremy Sanders, Jim Russo. There's so many key people, Eric Brennan, Brenman, sorry. And I think where we're at is, sorry, I'll back up. So we had this idea, and credit goes to Rick. He had this program that he was running called The Monster Within, and that was about 2012, 2013. And when he was running the program, it was a one-man show. It was a bit of a lecture, a little bit of hands-on. When he and I started really clicking with Bob at 2015, we said, let's run a workshop. We ran a couple down in Florida. They were during the daytime, 8-hour shifts. Over 2 and 3 days. And then it evolved into, we include biometrics or heart rate monitors back in the day. And then as it kind of kept evolving, we came up with the idea of, can we put all that information into a 24-hour period where people get to apply it right away? So we moved away from the lecture format, and we started saying, all right, we're going to do a little bit of fitness testing to help you understand where your limits are. Then we're going to give you a little bit of theory about how the physiology of stress response works. Now we're going to go work you hard and help you hit your 65 to 85% max heart rate. And part of that goal was to train people. You can go on calls and really work hard, but by changing your breathing, you can change your parasympathetic nervous system by lowering or slowing your exhale, or changing your pattern of breathing, or even what's going on in your head by changing your self-talk, your inner dialogue, and changing the way you problem solve on things, you can actually start slowing your anxiety level, which means you lower your heart rate, which means you lower your breathing or your air consumption, which allows you to work longer in the hot zone, or the fun zone, I like to call it. And it also allows you to communicate better to your team, to your partner, and on the radio to command. So as we started piecing all these things together, we've used firefighter survival, or fireground survival as one of those mechanisms. We also used straight out fitness, like exhaustion. And our goal has been not to get people to retire out or to throw in the towel or ring the bell. Our goal is to help people hit that maximum, what they feel is their maximum, and then say, okay, back it down a bit. Now, can you reach a new maximum? Yes. Back it down. Can you reach a new one? Okay. You need a little time out. You need a breather. That's fine. You need a hydration break. Let's go at it again. So the idea of taking 24 hours, including talk on how do you, well, I'll put it to you guys. What did you think when we presented the idea of we're going to take some time for yoga, for recovery? What'd you think?
Initially?
Yeah.
Not flexible. So I was like, this is going to suck.
Yeah. I'm going to be sore after this, which I was, but it was a good sore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty fair statement that a lot of us aren't flexible. I would go further to say there's a lot of men in the fire service who don't believe that yoga is a complementary activity to their, traditional view of how firefighting is a macho sport, and you throw everything at it till you're exhausted and you pass out. In our world, we did the research, we did the studies, we found that when people push themselves that hard, they're the ones who are lying in the mess that call a mayday, or even can't call a mayday, and they become disoriented, they pull the mask, and they may experience a line of duty death. So our goal in this whole process was to say, look, can you recognize how to take better care of yourself? It's not a nutrition course. It's not a physical weightlifting course. It's all about your personal growth. And while I know Smoke Divers has a similar model, they push people, I think Smoke Divers has a purpose. They have a Hell Week strategy, and they really work people hard, and they've set a high standard. Ours is different. It's I would say like apples and oranges. You can't really measure the two, but you could say, all right, we're going to push you hard. We're going to encourage you to push yourself further. And instead of relying on us as the external motivator, you're going to have a partner beside you. And we think that that is more lifelike. So when you're working through a maze, or you're working through hammering a tire, or you're working through doing runs up the ladder, or doing like a high-rise call, or stretching a deuce and a half and flowing water and working it down across the parking lot, can you do that and take time for a tactical pause, control your breathing, communicate to command, and even check your heart rate monitor and say, oh, look at that, I am 70% of my maximum. I'm not blowing it out the lid. I'm not ready for cardiac.
Mm-hmm. And that was something that we talked about with Jeremy, because hopefully we'll get to experience it because we've been attempting, but Brett and I want to do the Smoke Divers course, and at least we'll be able to say more once we get to actually do an attempt at it. But how we saw it is your course as well is going to give you that tools to, like, let's say, pass that course. If you were to do it reverse, I have an assumption that it would be like, as you're in your course going, damn, I really could have used this stuff, a month ago or a couple months ago. And that was what we had talked with Jeremy, what we saw. Cause like you said, you do really give you the tools to work through. You're showing, you're experiencing, and you're learning that stuff, where Smoke Divers is kind of like exactly you said, and they're very proud of. It's that standard. They have this standard. They aren't there to help you get to that. They're there to test you to that standard.
Yeah.
So you get the preparation, and it'll make things even easier.
So tell me, Brennan, what was the big takeaway when we were working together on that 24-hour? What was your one thing that you said, hey, that's what I'm going to try when I get home?
The breathing stuff really hit home with me. I tried it like on a couple calls, fires that I've been on, and I could see a major difference in like calming myself down. I worked more time inside than I ever did. Um, I was on the this apartment fire this summer. I worked. We had like 6 guys initially. We worked this apartment fire for like 20 minutes before we got any help. It was like I don't know. It was something weird. We had no staffing, so I was doing primary searches of the whole building, stretching lines, VES. I did it all, and I did it all in one bottle. And I was like using all this breathing technique and everything like that. So that really hit home with me.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Controlling my heart rate and yeah.
See,
like
that's making a smarter firefighter right there. Instead of just being, hey, I'm going to pour myself and into it and try to run at 100 miles an hour. You're saying, okay, all right, I know that this is a warm up, then I'm going to be doing other tasks. And, whether that's the conversation you have in your head or it's the taking a big task and segmenting, it sounds like tactical breath work was a big win for you.
Yeah. And just the motivation that I gained for myself, I learned for myself during that course. It's like I've been here before. I've been this tired before, and I grew upon that. So that's kind of cool. I learned about myself too.
Oh, right on. And you had a chance to apply it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Bryce? What was there anything that you were able to take home and apply?
Yeah, piggyback off the breath work has been a thing that I've been very mindful of going through. I mean, switching jobs, having to go through academy now again. I mean, they try and break you down. They try and make things hard, but just focus on the breath work and the kind of calmness I was able to get through. But aside from all of that, just something I've gotten from a lot of the fire service, but was extremely stressed there was just that brotherhood. I mean, like Brett and I have talked about a lot the first hour with you guys when you guys were sharing everything and then we had to share everything. I mean, the connection formed. I've got, I think 90% of that course I'm friends with on Facebook, following along with life events. Like there's just the connection that was immediately formed from a bunch of guys that, I mean, you guys don't give much information besides don't bring your nappy or whatever Rick says. Like, so you got a bunch of guys that don't really know what they're expecting. The only thing they know is they're about to be here for 24 hours and within an hour, knowing really the darkest and best moments about everyone's life, like immediately set the stage. Like I'm going to really know these guys at the end of this 24 hours. Like,
isn't that amazing? Because we look at shared experiences are what advances us to have tighter bonds, right? And while we recognize that, you take something like Mark Malkowski, from Alpharetta, if I say that right, out of Georgia. Mark does this phenomenal talk about where he was at as a younger person, and he sets that stage. And we've only been together in an hour, and he goes out on a huge limb to say, look, I this really hurt me back then. I've carried it for a long time. It's taken me a long time to work through that. And I've had guys come up to me and go, I was just going to introduce my name and the name of my dog. But when I looked at the risk that guy put out there, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, like we're all human. We all have different things that have sat in our persona or our ego that have either hurt us or played a role in who we are. And, I'm very fortunate to work with some top dogs in that cadre. And the fact that you say that was a quickly bonding moment. We've had a number of guys who have said, well, I wasn't planning on sharing it, but I'll tell you, yeah, I'm in the middle of a divorce right now. We had one guy say, I was an addict before I became a firefighter. And we've had another guy, I'll never forget. He said, I thought I was responsible for not finding the people in the fire, and I've carried that guilt. And meanwhile, his team didn't find them. And it wasn't that they were bad firefighters, but the guilt that he brought on himself, we can all appreciate. Hey, we're all hard driving type A men and women, they all would like to accomplish stuff. At a certain point, if you feel you can't deliver, a lot of people reflect inside and go, "Oh, I must be whatever." And no, you're not. You gave it your best effort that day. And can you learn from it? Can we grow from it? And I credit, the Jim Russo, the Mark Makowski, Jerry Sanders. They are all examples of post-traumatic growth. They've all taken a situation that was really, and they've come out the other side saying, all right, I know how to reflect on it. I know how to work my gaps. I know how to call in some help when I need it. I know how to be a stronger person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great course. We've told a lot of people. I mean, we've now bringing you on. We do have Rick coming back. Well, not coming back. We got Rick coming on later on in the year. We got Jeremy coming back. We have him every year since we started this podcast, since he was a huge reason we've gotten it. So we are making sure we get lots of opportunities to discuss it, because especially when we came back, everybody was like, "Oh, how was it? What'd you do?" Like, it's like hard to explain, but you need to take it. Like, "Oh, why? How? Why was it that good? What'd y'all do?" Can't really explain it, but you need to take the course. Like,
oh, that's awesome. We're blessed that you would share that information. We've had a couple of people come out and look around the group and go, these are some hard charging, and we've had a few of them step back and say, I don't know if I'm ready to be part of this group. Like this is like pre-smoke diver type thing we've seen some people. And we had a guy who came in from California who had said, I'm here to challenge myself. I'm not looking to measure myself against him or him or him. And he said it in the company of a couple of people, and Robbie Hendricks, he's a guy out of Portland. He said, exactly. This is not about, can you keep up to the next guy? This is about, can you keep up to yourself? Can you push yourself and know when to back it, accelerate, and so on, and set your new comfort zone, right? Yeah. And so here we are. We've had a couple of smaller, lightweight people who aren't doing the same reps or they don't have the same stride or the same capacity to carry, whether that's 50 or 200 pounds, but they are carrying their maximum. And we had a young woman who came up. She was in your neighborhood, I believe. And when she came back, she finished the 24 hours. She said, I've never been in her name was Amber. She said, I've never been in such a supportive environment. And we went, okay, is this not your normal? And she goes, no, being surrounded by people encouraging me to push beyond my limits, go beyond my comfort zone, set a new level within and she was one of those people we've stayed in touch with, because she set, new goals for herself all the time.
That's awesome.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And some of them are physical, right? And some of them are mental. Like some people are going through challenges, whether it's physical health. We had a gentleman on course before yours who was an amputee. And he did the course at his pace. Yeah. And so we're very lucky. Tactical resiliency training. If you're interested, finding us on Instagram. We're having a little trouble with our Facebook thing right now, and our website we'll be back on shortly. Sweet. We're just in the midst of doing a revamp.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, wrapping up the conversations on there, the last thing we have for that is, how do you become a performance coach?
Well, I threw that line out to you because I feel like a lot of training officers in my world, or subject matter instructors, I think they always view themselves as, I have information to impart to you. I'm going to share it. And I think at a certain point that works when you're a rookie. But Brendan, how many years have you been on now?
5 total.
And who's your best mentor at your department? Can you think of them?
I think my captain, Captain Braunschweig.
Yeah.
Good mentor.
What does he do that is not necessarily teaching you, but helping you or mentoring you?
Very good leader. I mean, he pushes crew first. He stays up all hours of the night just because he comes. So we do like a movie night every night. So he comes, sits down in the movie. He has hundreds of things on his list, but he puts his crew first, and I pick up on that, and he goes right downstairs and works for prices on our shifts.
He works
2
so
a.m.
long. He puts a lot of extra hours in.
I see the effort that he puts in, and I really.
He doesn't come sit in the chair and be like, "Oh man, I've been working for the last," you would never know that he's working those hours. He makes time for the crew, but he's always putting in that extra time.
He's always out there. We're out there training. Leader. He's the first one to say, "Hey, let's go do something." He listens to the crew. When I go out to it after training and come back, he's like, "Yep, you're teaching the class today." So it's stuff like that, really.
And would he put you on a spot and ask you to teach something you had never taught before?
No.
What he wants to do is he wants to build you up.
Yeah.
Everything you're telling me is he's demonstrating excellent leadership skills while boosting the abilities of his team. So he's also built a relationship of trust, I think, from what you're telling me. And he's modeled some fantastic work behaviors of, being diligent, knowing his job well, encouraging you to know yours. And then at some point saying, "Hey, all right, Brennan, you've been here for 5, but I need you to share and facilitate this next part," whether it's new guys or old guys. So I guess I'm looking at your captain as he is an example of a performance coach.
Yeah.
And my sense is that a lot of firefighters sometimes get stuck thinking that we're on this pedestal and I have information I must impart to you. You must do it this way. And if you didn't do it right, you screwed up, you're wrong. I don't want you here. You died. And I look at some of the trainers that I've seen, and they pull this line of no, you screwed that up. You didn't tie the rope right. You died. You're out. And I'm like, dude, that is the way to. Sorry, I apologize for swearing.
Oh, that's right.
Our slogan has a swear in it. It's all right.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm in uniform though. That's the problem.
Oh.
When I see somebody who, early on, I mentioned Bob Carpenter. He brought a concept to Rick and I and said, "Look, I'm tired of this mentality where people are trained to failure, and then they're hyped on them about it. So let's change our approach." TRT really became about success-based training. And in my view, a performance coach is exactly that. You want to see the person succeed. So you don't necessarily give them all the answers, but you do set them up with the right amount of challenge, both emotional challenge or mental challenge and physical challenge, all 3 components. And when you challenge them enough, you might take them out of their comfort zone, but that means they're in their learning zone. And if they hit that learning zone, they're going to grow. So as a performance coach, I'm right now, I have a stellar group of rope instructors right now. We're just moving through the 1006 rope rescue ops and technician program. And they're now raising everyone's competency. And I've said, okay, we're awesome. We're 100 people in. I think we've got 10 modules. They're on module 6 right now. Tim Kavanaugh just did module 6 today. And I said, when you feel like you don't have to impart new knowledge, then it all becomes about confidence. And you're encouraging them to be confident. Let them practice in a no-risk situation. Let them practice in a way that they're not surrounded by 50 people staring at them operating the pump panel, or operating the rope or the basket or the belay device. They say, do it in small groups. So we've changed our training. And I look at all my my instructors as performance coaches. They're all working in small groups. They're all taking the pressure off and saying, look, if you have any question, CTO Gillespie's not here right now. Go ahead and ask me. And we've had men and women who are like, hey, could you clarify this for me? saw this on video. I don't quite understand it. Could we practice this, just you and me? And I said, you get a training credit and overtime for helping that one person. Absolutely. Because you were coaching them. So I feel like regardless of the subject, whether it's swiftwater rescue, hazmat, rope, if you can blend in that success-based teaching philosophy and coach things such as, okay, you're about to rappel off the edge. Let's take a minute and do some tactical breath work. Let's take 15 seconds. Oh, we're teaching search and rescue today. Okay, I'm your facilitator. I'm the captain of this one team. All right, we've got to the stairwell. We're about to go up. Everybody, let's take a moment. Breathe it. Slow it down. Slow the exhale. Do that recovery breath. Okay, are we all good? We're all good. Okay, command. This is rescue one. We're engine one. Sorry, we're proceeding up to the second floor on stairwell, carrying on primary search. So, like, I'm going to pass the ball to you in a moment, Bryce, with an interesting counter question. But my view is you take your favorite sports coach, the one that wasn't screaming at you, but the one that made you feel good at the end of the practice and want to come back for more. Those are the people we're trying to emulate. So I put it to you, Bryce. Who is that one coach, that one captain, sports, school, on the job that stands out as a performance coach?
Well, Brennan took the cheater one because, our former captain would, but it's easy second would be former lieutenant, our Matthew Weidler. So he's lieutenant under Captain Braunschweig while I was there, and very easily came into that role as well. I mean, he was a brand new lieutenant, newly promoted while I was there. He was my firefighter. He was a mentor when I was just hired as a probationary. He was my mentor and got promoted. And yeah, he came into all of those stuff that we just talked about extremely, extremely well, and grew very quick, was not shy about having some growing pains, some growing issues. I mean, but he was open to, we'll say, criticism. It was, he took that stuff in, he thought about it, and he changed what he felt he needed to. And yeah,
they really stand out, right? And maybe it was back in varsity, or maybe it was in college, but we're, the fire service is lucky that we have these people, and you need to let them know that. You need to let your lieutenant, your captain say, hey, you made a mark on me. I look at somebody else, Robbie Hendricks and Willie Burnett. Robbie Hendricks is in Portland, and Willie Burnett is a resilience officer in Calgary. And both of them have modeled that type of positive, encouraging, going to give you some constructive feedback so you can be better at your job. And at the same time, we can communicate better. And they're very humble guys. And when I listen to them, and I think, you know what, look at that. They've been doing performance coaching since they were a rookie. And I don't think it needs a title. They're neither are captains, but they're, pretty impactful people. So, I think everybody who's listened to this probably has that one person who's entered into their head. Oh yeah. And man or woman, or if there's anybody else that doesn't fit your ideal job title with stripes, but you think they've been a good coach, they're probably all around. All right, I'm going to help you perform better. How do we do that? How do we do that together?
Absolutely.
Anyways, that's my take on performance coaching. I'm still working on it, man. Enough to say, awesome. I'm surrounded by some really good models of that, and we even had a talk. I'm going to grab another book. I'll just tie this in.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so a couple of books that you may find interesting. My 30 Biggest Fires book, somebody just borrowed out this morning, and the guy says, I'll see you next week. And I went, no, I need that. And those are good books. But this guy, Frank Viscuso, and you can see the sticks on it. We did his webinar on fire engineering. That's Frank there. We did his webinar on fire engineering from August. I pulled it up and I said, all right, that officer development program I was telling you about, I had a guy here named Craig Blewett, really spot on fella. He helped me design some features, and we said, oh, let's start off the first session talking about leadership, talking about coaching. So each of my 4 battalions, we sat down and we watched the webinar, and we start off the webinar with the question, who is your best mentor or leader here? And all the names are the same. There was one, person who said, oh, this person was instrumental on the back of a truck, didn't have any job, he didn't have any rank other than firefighter, but he was the best leader for me. We had other people who said, yeah, I was that battalion chief, and that conflagration was going on, and we all, were so relaxed because of his calm communication.
Yeah.
So we ran the webinar, and at the end of it, I had, so we put all our officers through it. I had at least 4 or 5 guys come up and say, hey, you know what? We are all talking about the leader who had retired out of here. I just want to tell you, thinking about Frank's talk about step up and lead, and your question, Dave, the guy that I respected the most was in the room today. And so like you guys telling your captain and your lieutenant, I said to my guys, you should go tell him that. And if you don't tell him, I'll tell him. But he needs to know he's having an impact right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so I kind of got on a whim there, but
that's perfect. That's what we want.
Awesome.
All right.
That does probably wrap up the time that we've got for our questions for you. So now we've got our 2 hardest ones. So we told you, we gave you a little heads up, but we've got a question from our previous guest, which was Jeffrey Bryant. And then you will have to come up with a question for our next guest, Joe Gangler from Madison. I think, Joe, I'm sorry. You probably told me down at MAPC how to say your name. I'm illiterate, so.
I'm even worse.
Yeah, we can't have Brennan attempt these. It would be even worse. But
all right.
So the question from Jeffrey was, as your bio, as you've talked about, you've had a lot of hats and a lot of experience. What position was your favorite, and what was your least favorite position in the fire service to have?
Least favorite and favorite. That's a good one. Okay. Can I go with 2 favorites? All right. My least favorite was being a firefighter on the back of the rig at the quietest station.
Mm-hmm.
I like a moderate level of busyness, and we have one station, Station 2, that runs 15% of our calls, and it's always to hold, somebody's hand and to, all the shortness of breath calls, those, and the hours in between calls. That was the hardest part. So that was my least favorite. I'd say my one favorite position that I have is captains. I think a company officer has the thumb on the pulse of the firehouse. They know what's going on. They have a chance to check in with people, and if they do the job well, they know everybody's first names, last names. They also know their kids' names, their spouses. They know what sports, and it's really a chance for them to be a trendsetter, they set the pace at the firehouse. So I was able to learn from Bobby Halton and from Rick and all these other guys that, in my view, the company officer is one of the best seats in the house and on the rig.
Yeah.
And the second best is actually the job I'm doing right now. I wake up excited to work with motivated people that want to improve themselves. Maybe not at the same pace I might, but that's okay. We're all on different speeds, but I work with some phenomenal people. And I don't mean that just in my community. I mean that I work with some phenomenal people in the fire service. Absolutely. So yeah, when I reach out and I hear from guys like you get me jazzed. So when I talked to Frank Fuscuso, Mike Aliano, I talked to Willie Burnett or Robbie Hendricks or Jim Russo. Steve Shaw out of Jupiter, same deal. I just feel really, really good about, and Mike Langford, I mentioned his name. I got another guy, Matt Baca, I talked to a lot. So really, my current job is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's how it should be.
Yeah. That's cool. Thanks.
Awesome.
Good question, Joe.
Yeah, it was a good. That was from Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, from Firemanship. He helped bring that back, which was a great time. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, now it's on you. So you've asked a couple questions, but now this is the final one. The last one you got to do is the question for Joe next month. Well, next episode.
Okay. All right. Question for Joe. If Joe were going to pick 3 of his top sources of something that would guide an aspiring firefighter, something that's inspirational, or something that's knowledge or brotherhood, sisterhood, what would those 3 sources be? Whether they're a name of a podcast, a book, a conference, what would those 3 resources be to help an aspiring firefighter?
Awesome. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, right on.
Well, Dave, that wraps up all the questions that we have for you. So you got to do a little bit of a shout out in that last part, but if there's anything that you would like to shout out, to touch on, maybe any conferences that are up by you, anything you've got your hands in, anything that you just want to have a little opportunity to talk about, now's your time.
Thanks. Well, boys, I'm really, really touched by that you would ask me, really honored that you'd asked me to come up. There were a few things in my little world I did not know the powerful impact. Like I did not know that Walter Lewis and a core group of guys out of Florida came up with this Fraternal Order of Leatherhead Society. And I'm a member of 2 different Fool chapters. I highly encourage, if you're up in Canada, look at West Coast Fools, or Hogstown Fools out of Toronto. That's another good group. And I would say if you're kind of looking around and you're just either bored with your career, feeling like you're kind of flatlined, or you're thinking about writing for that lieutenant or company officer exam, you need to start signing into these podcasts like New Dogs, Old Tricks, the Culture podcast by Jeremy Sanders.
Crew First, yep.
Crew First Culture. Thank you. I really think that you need to reach out in the whole world that Frank Brennan, Al Brunacini, David Rhodes, all those guys have given us that prior. It's in a new world and we need to be soaking it up. So instead of, I'll have my last one for you. Where is it? My last one. Right here. Yeah. If you like the fire service like I do, get a subscription to Crackle. Okay. Not only does he have a good looking cover boy. Yeah. But a buddy of mine, Corey Pern, is the publisher of this. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not. No.
Okay. All right. So that's Corey Pern. He's out of Canada. This is the firefighter version of Men's Health. It's got everything from financial advice to fitness, to breath work, to yoga, to how to get a divorce, how to not get a divorce. It's everything except for firefighting tactics. That's my final shut-in.
Awesome. That's cool.
Look at it.
Yeah. It's got a great online presence. And frankly, like, what are the titles here with Pat on? I'm positive that you're negative. The carnivore diet, hot flashes in the hot zone, escape these thought traps. Can you reverse cellular aging? And while Jason Patton's been on, it's got a great great collection of people they profiled, men and women around the North American Fire Service. And they even go to the point when they publish their articles, they have the author read the article. So you can click online and listen to it as a mini 2-minute podcast.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on, for taking the time to share some knowledge. It's been great. I know people are going to have gained some good knowledge from there. And again, like you said, it's cool that the connections that can be made through this. I mean, you're talking about podcasts through the podcast, through these conferences, through Fools, especially. It's the fire service is pretty great. So
yeah, you know what, you look at how the firemanship conference is running right now. The one out of Chicago, Illinois, just on the outskirts. I think that's, a terrific resource. People, you guys went down to MAFC, but there's these regional conferences that are just really feeding a huge demand. And I'd say the mother of all conferences, the FDIC, I'm lucky to be part of, because it brings together the experts that want to just keep sharing. And that's what you guys are doing. You're facilitating that at this level. So kudos to you, brothers.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. You guys are the best. Couldn't do it without you. Check out TRT and any tactical resiliency training if it's coming by you. Lots of conferences, lots of things. Great course. Rick, Dave, get to see all those guys. So
sign up first. We're one of the first we're the first event to get fully booked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, we run small groups. We have a good time with it. Good people like you and others like Amber and Joey Alexander and many others come through it. So we look forward to seeing you. Hey?
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure.
Take care. And as always, don't be a shitbag.
Thank you for coming on.